could it be the Holy Blessed One? Yai da 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 da, I am alive. Yai da 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 da, I am alive. Yai da 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 da. We are alive. We are alive.
Aryeh? Thank you so much, Jess. That was beautiful.
All right. Is there a lot of echo or no? No? Okay. Welcome, everybody. I feel quite honored to be in a Zoom room with 94 people at this time. That's pretty amazing. Up until a couple of weeks ago, I don't think I really was using Zoom at all, but I guess we're all becoming very familiar with it now. Anyway, welcoming everybody from not only all across the country, but all across the world, some family and friends in Israel. So welcome to everybody. I wanted to say first that I am extremely proud of my wife. Many of you may or may not know that the book probably started many, many years ago as Amy jotted down little notes and stories that each of our kids would surprisingly and happily say and express to us, sometimes good things, sometimes bad things, but they were all memorable moments that Amy kept a good log of for each of them individually. And while some of these stories are shared in this book, there are many more stories which maybe will become fodder for future books, who knows. Anyway, I'm extremely proud of her. It's been many years in the making, and I hope you all enjoy the book and the stories as much as I have. At this time, I would like to introduce Debbie Fisher to take over a little the Master of Ceremonies. So I think Debbie's on, I think I saw her. Debbie Reed Fisher is the award-winning author of novels for teens and tweens, and has been praised by Kirkus Reviews for balancing weighty issues with a sharp wit. Her middle school grade novel, This Is Not the Abbey Show by Random House and Delacorte, was released in 2016. She is a graduate at the University of Miami. Debbie worked for many years as an agent for film and TV, and then as a middle and high school teacher. She is the daughter of an Air Force colonel who served as a diplomatic attaché and grew up in England, Greece, and Israel. She is grateful to have had a childhood surrounded by many languages and cultures. Her mother is Cuban Jewish and her father is from New England with Scottish roots. Debbie currently resides in South Florida with her husband and 2 sons. And with that, I will hand it over to Debbie.
Aryeh, do you work for the FBI? I'm like blown away by this introduction, was not expecting it. Amy, this is for you. Rabbi Amy Grisblatt Passa. Mazel tov, first of all. And as weird as this all is, it's also fantastic. I'm so happy to see faces I haven't seen in a long time, and we're all here to celebrate this fantastic book and Rabbi Amy Grisblatt Passa's achievement. I'm just going to call you Amy from now on because that could get old. Time is of the essence. And I can't be more excited because about, I want to say 2 years ago, maybe a little under 2 years ago, we had a very fateful lunch where Amy sat down and told me about this book she'd been writing and she wanted to pursue publication. And I proceeded to be a complete Debbie Downer. I said, listen, I need you to go into this with eyes wide open. And then I went forward and listed all of the awful things about the publishing industry and how much of a heartbreaker it is. And just for an example, some of the truths that I shared with her came out in an article in Publishers Weekly in the mid-2000s when they stated that statistically, according to the numbers, the odds of getting a book deal are the same as getting a part in a Broadway show or a spot in the NBA. Statistically, that's the same. And I proceeded to tell her that it's a course of years to get published. You need an agent and blah, blah, blah. Well, at the end of this conversation, in which I thought Amy may never speak to me again, she still was very interested in pursuing this book deal. And I thought to myself, wow, she really is a writer, because no one writes because they have a choice. And I knew two things. Number one, that the premise of her book was very original. I had seen a lot of parenting books, but none that incorporated Judaic principles to support the personal stories that give parenting guidance. And I don't want to even say advice, because her book is such a blessing in that it gives you, the reader, agency about how you raise your kids and how you raise yourself. Choices are presented to you, and you figure out the advice on your own. But more about that later. So that was the first thing I knew. She had, she was what I call an FOD. Shonda Rhimes calls that an FOD. She's an award-winning screenwriter. First, only different. She was the first to come up with this premise, the only one I've seen, and it's a bit different. And all of that's really good in the arts, anytime you have the arts. And the second thing I knew about Amy from reading her blog posts and her writings here and there is something that maybe not everybody is aware of. Amy is an entertainer. And I don't mean that jazz hands, you know, singing and dancing kind of entertainer. That's me sometimes. Amy understands how to entertain people on the page. She understands pacing and suspense and buildups and payoffs when you're reading. Sort of subtle, nuanced elements of writing that you as a reader don't realize are really going on. People think you read silently, but the fact is you don't read silently. There's a voice inside your head that is entertaining you as you're reading. And Amy understands it much like someone who has an ear for music. There's a rhythm to writing. There are no long-winded passages that are gonna bore you. And Aria, give me the hook, because I can go on and on about this book. I'm in love with it, and I love your wife, and I just could go on and on about this. She understands how to entertain. One of the blessings of this book, the many blessings, is the economy of language that she's so gifted with. The chapters are really short. So, I mean, we all know Amy is a searcher and a thinker. If that doesn't, if those words don't really describe you, that's okay, because the chapters are so short, it's like having an intellectual snack. They are enough to inspire you, but more importantly, you can escape through these stories because they are personal, they are authentic, they're very relatable. And the one thing that I'm so grateful for in Amy's writing is she acknowledges without any judgment, much like Amy herself, the book is not judgmental. She acknowledges that your children are going to do things and say things that fly in the face of everything you have taught them, and even the Jewish values you have instilled in them, because God gave them, surprise, a mind of their own. And she acknowledges that in every chapter. And this kind of writing is a bravery on a level of which most people will never experience. And so I really, really appreciate the authenticity, the honesty, the relatability, and the fact that she gives you as the reader the agency to decide how you raise your kids and the agency to decide how you raise yourself. There's a lot in it about how to raise yourself. It's all supported by Judaics, halachically. It's all supported through the power of story. And what is the Bible? It's the power of story. It's story after story in which we are inspired. And that is much of Amy's book. I can't say enough about it. I woke up early to read it. And I hope it will be your parenting Bible and just a source of inspiration to everybody. It's also terrific discussion questions at the end of every chapter, great for sisterhood meetings, for book club meetings, anything in a classroom, any place where people want to sit around, discuss, and debate, and you don't have to be Jewish because, as we all know, Jewish values are universal. So I can't wait to see how far and wide this book will go. Mazel tov on getting a book deal. I use you now to brag to other people that I know someone who got a book deal at the speed of light, which you richly deserve. Am I getting the hook?
Thank you.
Yes, it's time.
Thank you.
Mwah.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Thank you, REA. Thank you all for being here. I wanted to also offer a shout out to my publisher, Larry Udelson, who is on this call as well. If you see his screen, it looks like he's in San Francisco. I think that's the Golden Gate Bridge. So thank you. And he's just informed me, good news, that if you are an e-reader, hopefully the book will be available digitally within a week or so. So we can be on the lookout for the book in digital form. All right, so here we are, everybody. Book launch in the time of coronavirus. Who would have thought, right? So this book was supposed to be published a month earlier. And if that would have been the case, I don't know whether we would have been able to meet in person. And as most of you know me, my thought was, what's the meaning behind this? What is this a sign of? What's the message that I'm supposed to glean here? I don't have the answer to that, but I do know one of the silver linings is the benefit of having so many of you from all across the world literally joining me. And so I'm just going to bask in my gratitude for Zoom and for all of you for taking the time out to be here. A special blessing to those who might be celebrating Easter today. I hope your holiday is blessed. And here we go. The book. Ari gave you a little bit of a insight into how this book was created or how it came into being. So Parenting on a Prayer originated when my kids were young. I started keeping a journal for each one of them when they were born, starting from the time they were born. And I would include things like their first words, silly stories, things like calling a Granny Smith apple a Nanny Smith apple, like things that just I thought were humorous and I wanted my kids to know when they became parents. And my intention was to give each of them this book of their own childhood tales. I saved report cards and things they're probably just going to throw away. But in any event, they're all in one place. And I had my kids very close together. At one point, I had a 5, a 3, and a 1-year-old. So they were close in age, and I didn't really have much time to do anything besides parent. It was a full-time job, as it usually is, but this seemed to be a much more compressed full-time job. And I was always looking for advice, right? How can I become a better mom? What can I do differently? Where can I learn? When I was able to read books, which was quite infrequently in those days, I would try to just glean some information that would help me become a better parent. And it happened on a Shabbat morning, a rare Shabbat morning that my children were in babysitting. Normally they were running around the sanctuary, and those of you who remember my kids back in the day can attest to that. They would be running, and just for me to sit for 5 seconds was a gift. So they happened to be in babysitting, and I was looking at the prayer book, and I was probably in my head at the same time going through one of the multitude of situations that, why did you do that? Why did you say that? What should have you done? How did you parent? And so I was having this internal parenting dialogue and looking at the words in the prayer book. And in a moment of silence, it was as if the words jumped up off the page and started whispering, like, pay attention. You see that word Shema? It means listen. Maybe listen in a different way. Oh, that's interesting. And then I went back the next week and I'm flipping through, and, you know, I was really praying for some of it, but a lot of it I was really, Lahit Palel means to judge ourselves, right? So in that judging of ourselves, of how we can improve, I was seeing other words. I looked at the Amidah prayer and I read God of our ancestors of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and thought, oh, so what's our connection to our family? How do we raise our kids to be connected to their family? And so what proceeded to happen over a period of about 10 years from 2007 to 2017 was the weaving of a tapestry of these journals and stories of my kids and the prayers from the prayer book. And so I've designed the book with 18 chapters. Each chapter is related to a specific prayer. And the prayer is associated with a value that I think is important in raising kids. So I'll share a few of those examples. Ma tovu, how good it is that we're here. I connect that to blessings and tell the story about blessings vis-a-vis my kids. The Birchot HaShachar, the morning blessings, are about gratitude. And I'll be sharing a story in a little bit about related to my daughter. She doesn't quite know that yet. I hope she won't run into the other room and make me change the story in the meantime, but it's a sweet story, more about me than it is about her. Things like peace. How do we create peace in our homes with the prayer Sim Shalom? The Torah prayer, Eitz Chaim, is about learning. Ein Keloheinu is about confidence. Aleinu is about responsibility. And all of these stories are woven together to create a tapestry of the synergy between the prayer that I believe offers parenting advice and the stories of raising my kids. So I wanted to also mention, and I think Debbie might have as well, is this book just for those who are familiar with the prayer book or those who are Jewish? And my answer is absolutely not. As long as you are an open-minded person who wants to learn about spirituality and wants to learn about child rearing and parenting and even about yourself, this book is for you. I have many friends who are not Jewish who are reading the book. One of my friends is a very devout Catholic woman who shared with me her daughter came home to visit. Her daughter happens to be I think a pediatric nurse up in Tennessee. And she let her daughter leave home, this was a couple weeks ago, leave home with a copy of my book because she felt that it was so important for her just to have, being a pediatric nurse, to help families when they are parenting and in their struggles. So I just really wanted to also stress that while it will probably make more sense if you are familiar with the liturgy, with the words of the prayer book, you absolutely do not need to be familiar with the words. And it's really about making the words your own and connecting to the values that I am proposing. And as Debbie indicated, to make them your own, right? Like part of being on this parenting journey is for you to run these values through your own personal filter. What works for you? And I also want to express that this is a helpful book for grandparents as well. There are many grandparents who are integral in helping to raise their kids, their grandkids, and this book, I believe, will be helpful. In the back with each section are activities that help to promote the value that's being expressed in addition to discussion questions. And when Debbie had mentioned that the book was short, in my design of the book, I remember one of my greatest frustrations, I already shared, was not being able to read anything in its entirety when I was a mom of young children. So by the time I got back to the book, it was like, who are these characters? What happened? And I'd have to go back almost like 2 or 3 chapters before anything made sense. So that's when I became a big fan of nonfiction, because I couldn't remember the characters at the time. And so I've designed the book with very short snippets. So each chapter has an aleph, a bet, a gimel, a 1, 2, 3, and it's maybe 1 or 2 pages so that you can feel successful at the end of the day. If you are a parent of young children, you could say, wow, I actually read part 1 of chapter 1. And that was something that I kept in mind in the design, because I remember for myself that that was a frustration, and I wanted to, and I want people to feel a sense of accomplishment, right? At the end of the day, they can check something and said, okay, I was able to read something from start to finish and not get distracted. So now I'd like to read a little bit from the book. Just going to read the first couple paragraphs of the invitation. I wish someone had taught me the prayer for parenting. What magic words did I need to utter in order to make everything unfold with ease? A few whispers muttered under my breath, or a loud shout at the top of my lungs to make my kids stop fighting would have been a godsend. Perhaps I wasn't aware of the special incantation that would mend broken bones and heal broken hearts, for I would have prayed those words with desperation and deep intention, if only they would have made my parenting journey easier. But alas, we know there are no such words, wishes, or desires of the heart that can help us navigate parenting unscathed. Most of the time, it feels like parenting doesn't have a prayer, literally and metaphorically. How many times did I ask myself, do I even stand a chance? Those are the opening words of the book. The next excerpt I'd like to share is from the chapter on gratitude. That seems to be the energy of the day. Gratitude for being here, gratitude for you all being here, gratitude for this book coming to light. So one of the prayers that we recite in the morning are the morning blessings, also known as Birchot HaShachar. And this blessing specifically goes as follows. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who opens up the eyes of the blind. And so now I'll share how I wove together the words of the prayer book and the stories from raising my kids. The other day, I was driving my daughter to school. It was a typical morning, except for the fact that she had just gotten her first pair of glasses. She was instructed to wear them at school, and if needed, at other times during the day. Carefully, she removed them from their case and gently placed them on her face. Silence. A few seconds later, I hear an exuberant, "I love the world." I waited before responding, and then she continued, "I love the world, Ima. It's so beautiful. Is this what everyone sees? Wow, look at all these colors. It's just so bright. I love it, Ima." I wasn't quite sure how to respond, but I was sure that I had just witnessed God opening up the eyes of the blind. Despite the fact that I felt like a horribly negligent parent for allowing her vision to get so poor without my having noticed, I was grateful for having witnessed her experience the world in living color. Using my daughter's experience allowed me to understand one meaning behind this prayer. My daughter's somewhat blind eyes were opened to see the beauty of the world. I will always remember that wonder and look of awe in her face as our ordinary drive to school became extraordinary. While thanking God for opening up the eyes of the blind can be read literally, I believe that these words can also be read figuratively. All of us are metaphorically blind in different situations. Some of us are blind to others' feelings. Some of us are blind to new experiences. And some of us are blind when dealing with certain subject areas, such as physics, economics, or English. Asking God to open our eyes means allowing ourselves to see things from a fresh perspective, or gaining an understanding that we might not have had previously. I believe that sharing this idea with our kids can be extremely helpful, especially as they mature. There are many things that at first we try, we may not succeed in, like being a good friend. It takes time to learn to read social cues, to understand facial expressions, to be patient and understanding, and to learn how and when to put others' needs before your own. Many elements are involved in being a good friend, but once this process is learned and eventually integrated into our children's psyches, they won't have to go through the friendship checklist, which is in the previous chapter you'll have to read. Instead, they will know intuitively how to be a good friend because their eyes will have been opened. Obtaining this gift of understanding of sight, both literally and figuratively, can fill us with gratitude. Gratitude to see the beauty in our world on a daily basis, not just when we put on glasses for the first time. Gratitude for the gift of being able to obtain a new understanding, a fresh perspective that can help us navigate through relationships, situations, and ultimately, life itself. So I hope that that short example gave you a little taste of what the rest of the book includes. 18 different prayers woven together with over 50 anecdotes. And I look forward to hearing from you. For those of you who have purchased the books, thank you. For those of you who are going to purchase the books, thank you. And if you could email me at parentingonaprayer@gmail.com and let me know your feedback, that would be great. And we will put that in the chat. And now I wanted to open it up. If anybody had any questions. If you have a question, you can raise your hand and Jessica hopefully will spy you. Or you can put your question in the chat, which may be easier.
I'm going to ask the first question, Amy. With first a kol hakavod, and thank you so much. My copy has not arrived yet, even though I ordered it a long time ago. So I don't know if it's just a Tennessee thing. But my question for you is a question I think I know the answer to, but I wanted to ask it since Debbie had mentioned sisterhood, kind of putting it in the category of a book for moms. Even though I don't think that was her intention, I'd like to ask you, do you feel like it's a book for everyone, that moms and dads, all parents can get something out of it, and also for people like myself who have kids who have grown and yet we're not yet grandparents, thank God, Baruch Hashem. Tell us how we would use the book. I think I know the answer, but I'd like to hear it from you.
Yes.
And then I'll look for a raised hand.
Okay, thank you. And I hope I am not going to put Sam Weiser on the spot, but if Sam is willing to speak, Sam is a dad who read the book. And so I would like to get his feedback if he feels comfortable enough sharing. So I'm just.
Could you rephrase the question for me again?
Yes, the question was, is it just a book for moms, or is it a book for dads and anybody who might be a parent or involved in a child or a grandchild's life?
It's absolutely a book for anyone. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed reading it. I'm looking forward to reading it without a red pen. I'm really, really thankful for the opportunity to have read it beforehand, because it's already had an impact on how I think, how I relate to my kids, how I relate to people in general. So it's, I think, just a gift to the world. And I was going to ask you a follow-up question as well, because I know as I was looking through it and realizing how long a process it was, I wondered how much you grew throughout the process and whether as you grow, things change in your life, and your perspective on certain issues will also change. So did you find yourself going back and changing things that you had already written years ago? What was the process of growth like for you as you were actually writing it?
That's a great question. Thank you. I'm gonna, Jess, I know I still haven't answered yours fully, so remind me, I want to get back to it, but I do want to answer Sam since it's in the forefront of my mind. So there, I actually had a running joke with Rabbi Jack Reamer, who would see me in synagogue over many years. And he would turn around and say to me, "Is the book finished yet? Is the book finished yet?" And then he'd see me with my kids and he would just say, "What? So just don't parent them for a few years and finish the book already." You know, just stop paying attention to your kids. Just, you have a book that needs to come out. And so part of the reason it took 10 years to write the book was because I was parenting, and it was hard to fit all of that into my life. As I mentioned, it was hard enough to read a book, right, from cover to cover and remember the contents, let alone sit and write. But at a certain point, I was really inspired actually by my husband, who said to me, "Okay, it's been enough. You need to sit down and you need to finish the book," right? So he was really helped me close the deal. And I was fortunate at that time. My kids had gone to school and everybody was accounted for. I was working part-time out of the house. So I would sit, and it took me maybe like a month or so where I sat and I reread everything I had written. I wrote more, and it was really in the period of a couple months that I was able to complete the book. What I did find very interesting is I had to re-edit 100% of the book, because I was not the same parent 10 years later. And I remember feeling so grateful that I went back and removed, I would say 99.9% of the word should or ought, right? I was this really wise parent when my kids were, you know, infant 2 and 4. I knew everything, right? Like, this is what you should do and this is what you ought to do. And then by the time when my kids were, you know, maybe like teenagers, I went back and read it and I'm thinking, what was I thinking? There is no ought, there is no should. Every kid is different. And so part of being a parent is to lean into that understanding that we need to be flexible, and that if we're going to grow and we want to help our children grow, we need to do this without the shoulds and the oughts. So that's how the manuscript changed tremendously, and it's how my parenting changed as well.
And Amy, as you get back to my question, I want to weave in an additional layer to it from somebody else who asked, even if you've never been a parent, can you tell us how we can relate to the book? Or
Yep.
You never intend to be a parent?
Yes.
And then the next person after that, there are 2 people that have raised their hands using the opportunity on Zoom. The first one was Shirley Gilad. So I'm going to ask Shirley to go next after you finish the response to this question.
Yes, thank you. So for those parents who are not, those people who are not parents, who do not have intention to be parents, I would say I believe that there is wisdom in the book for individuals, right? So one of the most humbling and flattering blurbs I received was from Dr. Rachel Naomi Remen, who wrote Kitchen Table Wisdom. And she said, to read this book is to realize that you yourself are a child of God. And for me, that was so poignant, because it's not just about raising kids. And for those people who aren't raising kids, I believe there are youngsters in your life, whether you are a mentor, whether you are an aunt or an uncle, whether you're a teacher, whatever your relationship is to youngsters, there is information to be gleaned, because ultimately it comes back to us. Like, how do we show up in the world? The lessons, the story that I told about my daughter, I think applies for everybody, whether you're a parent or not, whether you intend to be a parent or not. So if one is able to, the analogy I like to use is I remember being on an archaeological dig, and they would put a big mound of dirt into our sifter, and we would sift it out, hoping we were going to find that, 24 karat gold ring from the 5th century, right? And all the dust falls, and then you're left with those shards of pottery in most cases. So I feel like if one is able to take the information that works for them, and if they are sifting it and they say, you know what, I'm not necessarily going to be a parent, but I can ask myself the question, what areas of my life am I blind? What areas could I use to put on a new pair of glasses? And so as long as someone is able to see the information and really sift out what doesn't work, and I would say the same thing for those who are parents, and really keep the nuggets and the treasure of what does work for you, so that you too can open up your sea door, open up your prayer book if you happen to be in services, and secretly have a copy of this inside your sea door, so that when you're reading about Ma Tovu or Shema, you're gleaning new information about how this can apply directly to your life.
Thanks, Amy. So the rabbi has granted us permission. And as I think all rabbis on the call would say, it is perfectly appropriate to have other reading material that enhances your tefillah, that enhances your prayer. Shirley, I'm going to unmute you so you can ask your question, please.
Hi. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see so many people on this Zoom gathering. Two things I think one is something I would like to say, and I just started reading the book. I just received it a few days ago, and I'm enjoying it tremendously. I've known Amy for a little while, and the book is Amy, and Amy is the book, that's for sure, and that's wonderful. In terms of the book and its appropriateness for perhaps people who are not parents, it reminded me of a concept in Buddhism that is the concept of grandmother's love. And if you think of grandmother's love as something that you are willing to extend to your friends, to the cashier at Publix, it is all encompassing. So we can parent in the same manner that we love everyone, or we treat everyone. And then this book becomes really universally appropriate for everybody in every stage of their life. What I wanted to ask is, and you've touched on this, Amy, is you said you let go of the oats and shoulds. How do you look back on the mistakes that you made as a parent, knowing fully well that they were quite tremendous? What is the inner conversation that can take place to ease that regret, so to speak? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Thanks, Shirley. So my answer is I would probably want more time to think about it, and I will honor your question and give you a cursory response. That is with a lot of self-forgiveness, right? So I see myself in relationship to my children as we are symbiotic teachers for one another. And so even when I mess up, and I do share those moments in my book, which is why this launch is quite vulnerable. They're not all my best mommy moments. There are lots of mommy moments where I say, I really messed this up. And I hope that my going back to my kids and saying to them, which I do, and I hope I have someone next to me who can attest to it, is I apologize. And I say, I'm really sorry I completely messed up. Or I'm sorry you took it that way. That was not my intention. So it is not an easy place to be. And I feel that being able to admit when we're wrong or when we make a mistake is actually a really important gift for us to give to our kids. Because my hope is that when they would make a mistake, that they would then come to me and say, you know what, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean for that to come out the way that it did. And if we're able to be in this dynamic relationship where we can see each other as fallible human beings, I believe that our relationship and our love will just grow, expand, and be enhanced.
Beautiful, Amy. I'm going to call on Tally and Katz, and then Karen Aviv, it will be next. I'm unmuting you, Tally.
Thank you. So good to see you, Amy, and so looking forward to getting your book. And actually, as I was thinking, to sharing this book with my 2 adult daughters, and just referencing them, and just right now, just getting a call last night from my daughter in Manhattan, who is working at home, husband's working at home, and having a 5-year-old, almost 6, and a 3-year-old. And she just cried on the phone to me, and getting emotional thinking about it, because how hard it is. And this is an extremely creative person, but it's the sadness of her children at this formative early childhood age of missing the socialization. And especially her son is so social, where older kids can be on chat and phone. So right now, how do you speak, how do you speak to these mothers all over the country now who are in this really dilemma of, and especially with young children who do not understand the coronavirus? How do we help come from that prayerful place for them?
Yeah, that's a great question, a really timely question. I've been thinking about it a lot myself. I don't have the answer. I have an answer that I'll share. I heard from Glennon Doyle, which I am still sitting on the fence, but I want to share it because I don't have such young children at home. And she shares that she used to be a preschool teacher, and she would spend hours preparing for the day. And then she wanted to make sure that the kids were learning something. So she checked in with the parents, and she discovered that the only thing the kids mentioned was the very last activity that they did. Didn't matter how many hours she planned. They remembered the beginning, the welcome, and they remembered the end. And she was sharing that a friend of hers had called her exactly in the same predicament, young kids, crying, I don't know what to do, I can't entertain my kid. And the only time he stops crying is when I give him TV time. And this is where Glennon says, okay, let's just stop right here. There is no TV time. It's 8 hours of TV. It is getting through this pandemic, but making sure you finish strong, because that's what they're going to remember, right? So again, I don't know if I could profess that, but again, I don't want to sit in judgment because I'm not at home with toddlers that are super young, right? So, but to really be kinder and to let down the expectations of, I have to have a craft project at 9, and then we're going to have a baking exercise at 10, and then we're going to have nap time at 11. And like, yes, have a structure, have a routine, that's important. But to think that we can do it all and be entertaining these young kids 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I think is unrealistic. And it's going to cause more trauma and more challenges, especially for the parents. So again, it's something to think about. The notion of creating a longer TV time, I'm not sure I would be one to say all day long. But again, people have to find their own comfort zone. I think that if you were a family, when my kids were growing up, it was, a half an hour of TV. That would be unrealistic, clearly, in these times. So I do think that we have to expand what is, acceptable, and to not be judgy and to not be setting ourselves up for failure. You know, it's really, really hard, you know, staying home with young kids, and anybody who has done that, if you can remember, it's not easy. But there's an article I wrote recently for the foreword, and there are a few ideas. So I will post that in the chat as well. And that has some ideas of what to do with young kids. So, and the last thing I'll add is just to really witness and validate. So to make sure that we are witnessing and validating those parents who are at home with young kids especially, but with any kids, and to those people who are home by themselves, for those people who are home with one partner, whatever it is, I think that we are in a place where we need to just bear witness and validate each other's experience, regardless of how that experience looks. And it's going to be different for everybody.
Thanks, Amy. It's really good to have the reminder. We cannot hear it enough, to be kind to ourselves while we're being kind to our families and those that we live with. And I can't tell you, there's not a day that goes by that I don't thank God that I'm not a mother of young children in this moment, and also feeling so much compassion for those parents who are at home with young children. I'm gonna open up the mic for our beloved Karen Aviv.
Thank you. Amy, I'm so excited to hold the book in my hands when it arrives. So, Mazel Tov and Kol HaKavod. My question is, as you were writing and diving into the Siddur, was there any particular tefillah, any prayer that you really struggled to connect to, or to connect to the experience of parenting your kids? Dibarti.
Yes. Can I just stop there, or do you need a further explanation? Yes, the answer is yes. So my challenge at times was to find enough material and stories that fit with the prayer. So there were certain moments where I would look into a prayer and I would just get it, right? Like Baruch Hu, it's about respect. But how does the Baruch Hu prayer, right, the call to prayer, relate to respect? And it was digging deeper, and then I could perhaps get a story, found one story that related, and then I needed 2 or 3 more. So it was a challenge to almost rotate the prayer in a different direction. So holding on to respect, what would respect look like if I rotated it 90 degrees, if I rotated it 180 degrees, if I turned it upside down, how might I come to understand more about this prayer through the lens of respect and still figure out a way to connect it to parenting and to raising kids? So Baruch Hu was a challenge. I think that was probably my greatest challenge. And I think it was also, of course, the last one. Isn't that always the challenge when you're at mile marker, 24 or 25 of your marathon? Adon Olam was the last one that I did, and that is focused on God. So that was challenging to find God stories with my kids, many of whom don't really believe in God. That's interesting. What do I do about that? So I went back to when they were younger and they did believe in God, right? Or wrote about the experiences of what it means to raise children who don't believe in God when you are on your path to becoming a rabbi. So I want to be mindful of everybody's time. I want to thank you so much for joining me. I will stay on for some extra time if you have questions that you didn't get answered. I just wanted to conclude by sharing the following. Many of you have asked very kindly, how can you help spread the word? How can you get the book? And in the chat, you'll find links to where you can purchase the book. I also wanted to say that I have lots of copies in my house because we were supposed to be meeting in person. So I am handling the books with mask and gloves. I'm happy to sign them. I can also mail them from home, so I don't even have to go to the post office. If you're interested, you can write me either in the chat or contact me via email or parentingonaprayer@gmail.com. For those of you who have already purchased the book, thank you so much. I would ask that you can write a review on Amazon or on Barnes & Noble. Another great website to know about is bookshop.org. Bookshop.org. They are a website that is supporting independent booksellers. Amazon, fortunately, is out of stock of my book, and they won't be reordering for a while, at least from what I've told. So if you want to order from Amazon, that's great, but just know, I checked last night, the delivery is not till the beginning of May. So if you can review the book, that would be great. The other way you could help me get the word out is for those of you who are on social media to post or tag or share the good word. Some of you have already done that, and I'm gratefully, amazingly appreciative of that. And also you can share this book with your rabbi or your minister or your pastor or your local educator, your local librarian, those people who are able to disseminate information. And the last piece of information, which I would love to share, some people have been asking about forming book clubs or book forums to discuss the book. If you're interested in participating, you can also send your name and your email and phone number to parentingonaprayer@gmail.com. And just write your name and I will put together book clubs and book forums. I know there are a few groups that are already meeting, which is wonderful. If you would like me to pop on while you're meeting, I'm happy to do that. If you want to talk about me, I won't pop on and you can just talk about the book without me, but I want to help create ways that people have a forum to discuss the book. You know, one of my friends had sent me a text that just says, you know, I'm reading the chapter on trust, and it's really making me think a lot about my own struggles, wonderings about trust. So where can I talk about this? And I'd love to create that for as many people who would want to do that. So again, there should be information in the chat that links to purchasing the book. I was very fortunate and grateful to have 2 pieces that were published. Shout out to Eileen Prusher, journalist extraordinaire, who helped me connect to the foreword, and that article should be in the chat as well. The article in the foreword is called Parenting in a Pandemic. And then there was an article that...
Amy, Tim Lerner also wanted you to mention what was on the, it was an IJKL
okay, great.
book review.
Yep. So there was the forward article. There was an article on Queller.com. And that article was basically, how do we celebrate Passover, the Festival of Freedom, when we might not be feeling so free? And finally, there is another book talk that will be with the Institute for Jewish Knowledge and Learning on the 27th of April. So if you know of anybody who might want to hear more about the book, or you just want to come back for round 2, you can go to www.ijkl.org. Thank you so much again for being here. Jessica, thank you for hosting, co-hosting, sending you all so much love and gratitude, and looking forward to hearing your thoughts about parenting on the prayer, and just want to send out prayers for safety and good health and calm to our planet. So holding all of us with prayers, because while we can do lots by staying in and wearing masks and gloves and limiting social you all know the list, washing your hands. I like to energetically support the other realms that we might not be able to see. So for those of you who I know are in this room rolling their eyes, those people who live in my house with me, I just want to say, it's okay. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And I like to cover all my bases. So I'm doing the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual, and I'm going to be in all four worlds. So sending you much love. Thank you so much again. Like I said, I'll stay on if you have any questions. And I wish you rest of a Chag Sameach. Enjoy the rest of your Passover.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye, Amy.
Bye.
Congratulations
Yep.
again.
Congrats.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
It was amazing. I could have stayed and heard you speak for another 2 hours. So I think you should do a part 2.
Oh, thanks, Eileen. Thank you.
I second that.
Thanks, Wendy. So good to see you.
Mazel tov, Amy.
Thank you.
I know what I'll be reading over the next days of Yom Tov.
Excellent.
Glad I got my copy in the mail finally.
Me too. Me too.
Mazel tov. It's always good to hear from your voice and hear your wisdom.
Thank you.
Love you.
Love you.
Amy, thank you.
Thanks, Howard.
Yes. Great to see you.
I'm just constantly inspired. Can't wait to finish the book. Just wanted to bring up one thing for those of you who've already bought the book and you want a signed copy. God willing, we'll all be able to see Amy in person soon and each other, but we don't know how long that will be. And in the meantime, there are these labels that, Amy, if you want to write something personal inscription, you can snail mail them to people who've already bought the book. They put them inside the cover, and voila, you have a signed book from the rabbi who wrote it. So I just wanted to let everybody know, if you want your book signed and you don't know when you'll be able to see Amy and you've already purchased it, that's a really easy way to have a personalized inscription. Also makes a great gift. You can inscribe it to someone else, buy another book for yourself, and give that to someone.
Thank you. Thank you. Spoken like a pro.
Hey, Amy, it's Deborah Silver. Congratulations. Mazel tov. I'm so proud.
To keep you and your family safe. Love.
And Amy, I know you told me that people were telling you how impossible the book is. You shouldn't do it. Don't tell Amy you cannot do something, because she will defy the next statement. The book is great, and we're very proud of you. But not just because you wrote a book, because you're Amy.
Thanks, Mommy.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah.
It was extraordinary. It was really, and it was the least hitchy Zoom convocation I've been in a long time. So I'm really, you have a lot of media savvy, tech savvy people in your life. And I love that your mom is so tech savvy that she has a really cool background. So amazing. I'm gonna hop off and I'm gonna cancel my order from Amazon and reorder from maybe I'll reorder from you directly. I'll talk to you about it. Love you.
Thank you.
And all of you Tessas. Bye.
Thank you.
Hi, Amy, I just didn't get a chance to say before, I think the concept, there have been so many books on parenting and books on, I've seen on Jewish parenting, but no one took the integration of the, that I've seen of the wholeness of our liturgy. And it's like, it's coming from our Torah, from from our liturgical story. And so it's on many levels for people that have difficulty relating to prayers. You've opened up a new window to help people navigate a sitter and make it personal for them and their own, and help them guide them in their own personal family story. So that is extremely powerful. And I want to thank you. This is my third. I taught 2 classes this morning on Zoom. So it's like to be with you. It's just been wonderful. And it's, I think for everybody, like Marcella Bronstein said, we may be physically distant, but our souls are so connecting like never before. I think in this format that we're reaching people and seeing each other. It's God's plan in some way. This is the beauty of this plan right now. It's hard to find beauty in it, but this is some beautiful things coming out.
Thanks, Tali. Thank you.